Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm John, and welcome to JPsCreations. In today's episode, I'm going to be assembling and showing off a couple of boxes that I designed and engineered. The designs will be available for sale on my website, as well as kits, and I'm using the proceeds to pay for my college tuition. That being said, let's get into the file and how to build it. This is the actual one we'll be building. It currently has rubber bands holding on these panels. If I can get my... Well, those are a wee bit tight. Can't even get a fingernail in there to lift it up. But, there we go. As you can see, we'll have to take this all apart because it was currently just dry fit together. We're going to take off the outside layers, and I'll also show you how to put together the inside core. And then we're going to glue it all together. Today I'll be using some wood glue, Gorilla brand. That doesn't matter. Get whatever one you happen to have available at your store. But PVA glue works quite well for wood, so that's what we'll be using. The one I'm assembling has no finish on it. It's just raw wood because I didn't actually have any orders for these, and I wasn't going to waste the time finishing the wood. This one's finished because I had a piece of wood. However, I was out of it. I ran out of wood. It was pre-finished, so we'll go unfinished. Pre-finishing it is recommended. That's what I wanted to mention there. This one is stained and then colored with, or covered with a clear coat, and that's how I got the wood grain with the nice color. However, with that, the stain is only on the surface, so you can't sand into it. It'll change color. So that's where laser cutting is perfect with it, because we get nice clean edges when it comes out of the machine. I suggest putting mask on it, at least for the outside layers when you glue it up. That way you ensure you don't get any glue spots on it. However, mask doesn't always cooperate, so that's all up to you, and the other option is an opaque paint, which is like that there. And this one I happen to do to match the dice with the paint job. And you could do similar or any kind of color pattern that you want. So pre-finish your boards if you want it to look really pretty as soon as you finish assembling it. And that's how the kits that I make, I pre-finish the boards and leave the mask on when I send it. While assembling, peel the mask from the inside pieces, because otherwise I found out with that one, if you glue in the mask, it's hard to get it out. I'm going to go ahead and deassemble this one real quick so we can actually assemble it. It has the hinges put in, and those are made out of the same plywood to make all of this mechanism. And then the only bit of difference is the axle itself, which is in fact just a handy dandy little toothpicks. Otherwise, the ones I have measure 1.9 millimeters in diameter, so it is a 1.9 millimeter diameter wooden dowel. Other things work that are the same size, like clothes hangers, metal ones, work extremely well for axles, and if you have some wire cutters, you can trim those to the right length, and you could build this with metal axles. I, however, will be using just regular old wooden toothpicks. That being said, this does take quite a bit of work to get this big piece off, because it makes a bunch of friction holds. But there's the hinges, and once I lift that piece off, we have all of the the outside box pieces, and I'll just stack those up over here. And you might notice I already have neodymiums in place in these, and those are really easy to put in place. You just have to size your hole for whatever your neodymiums you're using are. In this case, I'm using 5mm diameter magnets. I can just pop it out. The hole is 4.8 millimeters, so it's 0.2 millimeters smaller in diameter, and that is what creates that friction hold when put in. However, that doesn't always hold perfectly, so what I usually like to do is to coat over it, like I did with this one, with a bit of clear super glue, and it just shelled over. Let me see if this one will pick it up any better. Not so much. There we go. So there it is. So you can see how it shelled over, and that that holds the magnets in there much better. On the ones for on the inside, I had to do those in here, and then for the outside ones, they got the glue on the outside. And that's because one magnet goes to the inside. Ooh, there's the camera. And one goes to the inside, the other goes to the outside, and that keeps them in line this direction when it's put together. And the same goes for this box. When it there's a piece on the inside and one on the outside, and it needs glue out here if that hole starts to get loose. What it really needs is an extra layer on either side of the magnet, but what that would require is having 4 layers of wood for every one, and that's a little excessive when you have a box that's that thick for a deck of cards that's that big, and your box would be like there. It would be a little silly. It's already a little silly, but it is very very strong, so only yeah, only somebody who is exceptionally strong would damage their deck. I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, the hinge pieces, I'm just trying to lift those out of place. The hinge is made entirely out of the same pieces that get repeated in, I guess, somewhat of a motif. But here is one of them. Let's see if I can get a nice shot of this for you. So here's what I assemble them as, and then I put them inside of it as I'm building it. Oh, this one is upside down. Actually, yes. So what I'm looking at there is these should be symmetrical along the break, and that's, oh, where's that? There we go. Trying to get it in the camera. And you can see that it's symmetrical because these are in the same place along that whole strip. Same with this step and this one. And those feed into these here. Speaking of that, I'll just set them to the side and we'll look at the inner box. This is it when it's already assembled. The last piece that gets added to it is this one, so it's the first one we'll remove. This is the keystone part. It's very important because without it, you can see that there's a bit of wobble here, and then as soon as this piece goes on, it's completely rigid. So this is it pulls everything square because it is cut to square thanks to amazing lasers. And then these make up the sides of the box, and all of these tabs are the same as these, just smaller in this case, and that means that to undo them we just have to slide in this direction, and then we slowly make our way and lift, and there comes out that piece. And we could do the same for that and for this last section. So there's our back. Well, actually I guess that is the front if you look at it that way. So that is the front inside, that's the back inside, and then we have our two sides for the inside. And actually that would have went that way. If this were pre-finished, the direction that they face would be important, because like say in the case of this box, this side would be blue and this side would be white. The white side is the side that would get the glue. In this case, they're both the same because it's unfinished and it's just raw wood on both, so it could be used either direction, and since it's symmetrical it can be. However, if you're assembling one that is finished, you need to make sure that you face the side that is finished on the inside box towards the inside, and then when you're assembling the outside box, the finish will be facing the outside. That way, your box has been sanded, stained, or painted, clear coated, sanded again, clear coated, sanded again, clear coated, and then masked. So it's really smooth and really pretty on the inside and the outside. You can see in this one, it was a prototype, so it has this cutaway. This one doesn't have that cutaway, so if you're looking at that note, that it's slightly different than one that you'd have. Also, the same for this cut line. That doesn't exist anymore. It was something I tried on the very first cut, and yes, I was so ballsy that I used the pretty finished wood on my very first cut, because I don't learn well, and I knew it would have problems like it does, but whatever. Stubborn. Speaking of my stubbornness, let's go to putting this together. We have our front, our sides, and the tabs on the bottom should all face the bottom as we slide those in and up. It then meets, and those should all be nice and flush. With this one, these are the hinge pieces, which need to go at the top of that, which puts these tabs the same as these tabs, all at the bottom. So we can clink that together and pull it down. And that, as we went over when disassembling, is our keystone. And there it's seated in place. And that's that bottom box. The top box is very much the same in that the capstone is the most important part. And then this just sets on there. And then both of these slide together with those same corner brackets. So I'll just slap this back together and we'll get some glue on it. While I'm doing that, I'm actually going to swap over. Oop. Oh, why is that not? Why in the world? There we go. Hey. How about that one? Let's. Alright, well, we'll go ahead and go with this one. This is the file. So if you have purchased the file, this is what it will look like, at least for the Mark 1.1, which is what this specific version is. Otherwise, it might have new features or more pages, but I'll always make sure that the Mark 1.1 is included if I make new versions. That way you can still make this old one and the video will still be of use. And inside of this file, the ones that are this light blue color are the outside pieces, the green are the hinges, the yellow are the links for the hinges, and then the orange are the inside boxes. And here is the exact dimensions of the inside of the box. That way you can reference it and make sure that it'll fit a deck that you have if you are getting it for a specific deck. If you're interested in me designing any kind of fancy custom boxes with hinges and stuff, that's my contact stuff. Otherwise, this is the file. It's all pretty simple to laser cut. You just slice through in all of the parts and assemble. If you're used to laser cutting, it should be pretty standard stuff, pretty standard fare. The only difficult part is when assembling it. Even though this assembly is designed to be a lot simpler, as you can see, this is already pretty rigid. It holds itself together. I don't need to worry about it. And then once I put these on, it's really easy to wrap it up with rubber bands and clamp it. So let's get to that part. So we have the inside and the outside, or the inside, I should just say, the top and the bottom. That's what I was trying to say there. The pieces that have to be put on very last is these two. That way we can get all of the rest assembled and then put the hinge in, because the hinges are kind of a pain in the butt since it's all self-contained and you can't get to the axle after it's assembled. You have to assemble it all together, and you have to assemble the hinge with all of the axles and every moving piece in place. So that makes that fun. Let's start with our big box. Actually, I'll start with this. Yeah. To assemble this, I'm going to be using the clamping force of some rubber bands, but also the clamping force of some binder clips. These are available through a bunch of craft and office supply stores. I have found them very helpful for laser crafting. So if you're a laser crafter and you need a bunch of really cheap clamps, I highly suggest looking into binder clips. So let's assemble this piece and glue it up. I will have a piece that will glue on right here, one that will go here, and one that will go here. There's also a piece that will go here, but it cannot be put into place until all of its hinge pieces are assembled in there. So we will be ignoring that last piece until a little bit later. So that is this piece. That will be left up there, as will this one, because they're not needed yet. We will need that one, those, this, and these. So let's go ahead and spread some glue on the parts that we're going to be gluing. As I had said before, all of these are raw, unfinished wood that is pretty rough, and you can see that there's quite a lot of surface area. Well, not as much with this specific piece, but there's still more surface area than just finger joints would have, and that's actually where all of the strength of this system comes from. With this piece, there is a short side and a long side. The short side goes towards the inside of the box, towards that, and the long side goes towards the bottom of the box, this lip. So slide that into place, making sure that is nice and taut, and there we go, that piece is in place. Next up is the pieces with the magnets. You can insert the magnets now and make it a little easier on yourself, since it's easy to push these against the table. Once you have it all put together, especially if you put this one in first, it's hard to get that one in. So decide whether you want them now or later. In this case, I already got them together, so I just need to glue this. I was just checking. It looks like around here is the spot I need to keep this dry, and we can tell that by just putting it together. And I will actually take my pencil and just scrape along there so I can actually see that specific line, so I know where to glue to. So I now need to glue on this side of that line. There we go. And the amount of glue that you use is something you just kind of have to get a feel for. Too much glue and it will create a lot of squeeze out, like so. where you can see that big bulge of it. And there's a few a few ways to deal with squeeze out. One is to let it start to set up and then wipe it away with a razor when it's kind of not liquid but not solid. The other option is to get a wet washcloth and wipe it away at this point, and then the fourth is to let it dry and then come back and work it. Reworking it will cause you to need to sand or to paint or things of that sort, so that's not recommended. So in this case, in here where I can't have glue, I'm going to use just a napkin, and I'm going to wipe that away. But I need some water, so I have to dip that real quick. Alright, dipped it into my water cup, and now it's a little damp, so that I can wipe away the glue that had squeezed out on my the surface I need to not be glued. So there we go. The glue has been wiped away nice and clean, and we need to do the same thing on this side. You might notice there's some here, because this one I won't be getting the panel on soon enough. I'm going to wipe away this bit of glue. That way it doesn't dry and create an obstacle to glue in the this piece. Some catchy music going on in the background there. Full disclosure, I don't actually know how loud that is in the video, so it may be really quiet and you guys can't even hear it at all. If that's the case, I apologize. And we'll be boosting that slightly, just because I want to have a little bit of background music there. Alright, there I have that all nice and covered with the glue. So I lower it into place, giving it a squeeze, and then I grab my dampened napkin and wipe that away. Come to the inside surface, and I wipe away the squeeze out, and then I clean up that there just a smidge. And now the last one to go on will be this piece. Which gets a nice covering of glue. A little thin. There we go. And for me, I just kind of have a sense, based on the fact that I always spread the glue by hand, as to the feel of the thickness, I guess. But that might all just be in my head, and I have no idea how much glue I need, because who can really say? There we go. And that just plops into place there. And then I'm going to take, oh, I had one of the big ones. In that one? Nope. Aha. I only have a few of the ones that are the big size. There we go. And I probably should have plopped these on right away, but I didn't happen to think of it. So sue me. Actually, please don't, because I don't want that. It's just a saying. Alright. That is nice and in place. I'll wipe away some of that squeeze out. And now I just have to put that in place after I get all of its hinges in place. But I'm actually going to assemble this one, all except for that piece. Stay. And we'll get to that one last. So, I'll start with our biggest piece. I start by getting a good amount of glue on the center inside, and I'll use my finger to actually glue up all of those after I spread it. There we go. Make our way all the way around, and it's important to get the glue on all of the surfaces here if you want it to be the best that it can be. However, technically, if you just had glue in this inside spot, it would work, and that's because of the fact that this joinery doesn't require just the glue on the joint itself right here like most joinery does, because this is already assembled into a strong box. When we put this on, all it's doing is locking these tabs in place, which means it cannot be they can't slide to disassemble. Make sure you take your time with it. That way you can work all of the glue spots away. Just had to get some more water to dampen up my cloth, and then wipe away the squeeze out. A lot of woodworkers will tell you that using a damp cloth like this is not recommended, and that is because it will lift the grains. However, that's only if you're using raw wood on this outside. If you have a pre-finished box like this, wiping away with the damp cloth won't raise the grains. It'll just clean off of the finish like that. It's actually really nice using finished wood because of that reason. Now I'm going to do both of the sides. Only glue one at a time, because you can only work it as fast as you can work, and you don't want the glue to set up on you outside of the joint. I need just a little more glue, I think. There we go. So I'm now just going to finish spreading glue everywhere. Make a big mess, but it's fine because it's PVA glue and it's water cleanable, so that's a lot better than cyanoacrylate. I'd never do this with my fingers with cyanoacrylate, and because I like having skin on my fingers. And if you've ever super glued yourself to yourself, you'll know exactly why that would be a bad idea. Because that's what you would do. Alright. So this one, my cloth's getting a little glued to itself. I should have had an actual cloth ready, but all I have handy is the napkins. Alright, so I'm going to, also because this is just a prototype, I'm just going to say screw it, it'll have glue all over it. I don't care anymore. So I'm not going to care about the squeeze out anymore. If you're working on something that you want to look pretty, take care of the squeeze out. That's just a general rule for woodworking. As for right now, screw it! Now I'll do it on this one. The reason I'm doing it on this one instead of on there like I was contemplating is because on this I can actually get it on these edges. However, if I were to try to squeeze in there, it likely would just make a big mess. Alright. There's that. Make a bigger mess if I can. That's the way to do it. Alright. I'm just gonna throw that one in place real quick. This one I know it's going to splay out everywhere, so I think it'll do fine on its own, spreading the glue. There we go. That is in place. This one is the weakest piece, this specific panel I just glued in, and that's because all that holds it is its glue bond to this piece. However, all of its edges are recessed